Now, I'm going to use Occam's razor here, now that we're familiar with it, to answer this question. All other things being equal, what is the most justifiable explanation for any effect? Right? So, just as an example, we'll take the effect of the planets moving around in space. That's the effect we're looking at. Now, if we reject the idea that the planets are doing this themselves, right, then we have to posit the existence of something else moving the planets. Right? So, let's use Occam's razor and see what the most reasonable conception of this other agent is, all other things being equal. So, I started with the easiest one first. All other things being equal, one or many. Well, if you don't have any reason to think that there's more than, you have reason to think there's one, right? Because you need that. You need one. But if you have no reason to think that there's more than one, then you're not justified in explaining it by more than one. So, the answer to that one is one. If you don't have any reason to think that there's more than one, but you do that there's one, then one should be what you go with. What about this? We know that it exists. It has to exist because it's doing something. So how should we conceive of its existence? Is it eternal or finite? In other words, does it have a beginning or not? Which is the simpler explanation. Well, if you conceive of it as being finite, if you think of it as having a beginning without any reason, like unless you have reason to think it has a beginning, then you are unnecessarily complicating the explanation. Because if it has a beginning, and if nothing can bring itself into existence, you're necessarily bringing a second agent into it without needing to. So again, Occam's razor, all other things being equal, we should conceive of it as eternal, as simply existing, not as having come into existence. And lastly, I'm sure you see where I'm going with this, is it a mind or not? Use Occam's razor to answer this question. Well, if you think of it as something that's mindless, you necessarily have to involve another agent to account for what it's doing. Right? Because it's mindless. Mindless things can't choose to act. So, if without any reason you think of it as being mindless, you're unnecessarily complicating the scenario. So, the simplest explanation here is that it's a mind. Now, you put all this together, and what do you have? You have this. All other things being equal, the most justifiable conception of the cause of this particular effect is the single eternal mind which rationally grounds the whole causal process. You know this mind has to exist. It's a conceptual necessity of causation that it exists, and it turns out, all other things being equal, it is the best explanation for any given effect. Again, all other things being equal. It's the default best explanation. I'm going to be alluding to, or directly quoting some scripture here as we go along, and I just want to be clear that I'm not, in today's lecture, I'm not drawing a direct connection between the kind of eternal mind that I'm fleshing out by natural theology. I'm not saying that is definitely the God of the Bible. But I am quoting these scriptures to show you that it is completely compatible with the God of the Bible. His name that he gives for himself in Exodus, I am, is certainly compatible with this idea of a single eternal mind that simply is eternally, right?